Now let's talk about the part that everyone cares about, the van. In almost every survival game I play, the base is an anchor. You build it, you just leave it, and you run back to it. In Outbound, your base is the adventure. I jumped into the demo thinking this was just another gimmick, but then I found myself building an entire ecosystem on the roof of the van. That's when it clicked. This isn't just a driving game, this is a mobile lifestyle simulator that completely changes how you play survival. So we're looking at Outbound by Square Glade Games. They're calling it Cozy Vival, which is basically code for open world crafting without a zombie trying to rip your throat out every 5 minutes. Now, the demo drops you straight into the core loop. You start with an empty electric camper, a battery that dies too fast, and a whole lot of open road. Your goal isn't to defeat bosses, you're here to turn this metal box into a mobile home that functions. It looks cute on the surface, but after I sank some real time into the mechanics, the logistics get surprisingly deep. It's fun and it works, but there are definitely some friction points with the pacing and the movement that we need to be honest about. Now let's dive into the building system. This is where the game invests most of its resources. Inside the van it feels a bit snug. You have a limited grid to work with, and at first it feels pretty basic. You get to place a few counters and machines, standard stuff, and then I unlocked the top rack and the industrial machines and the game shifted. You aren't just decorating a room, you're engineering a life support system inside and on top of the camper. You'll have to figure out where to put energy storage so it connects to the outlets, but here's the catch. You also need to leave walking space so you can reach your bed without getting stuck on the furnace. The best part is the puzzle of it. It forces you to be efficient. You can't build a massive warehouse like in other games. You have to be selective because your physical space is limited by space availability in the van. Every square inch matters. Then you get to the roof. Expanding upward changes the dynamic completely. You place floors, furniture, machines, and walls, which allows you to get creative with your space. It does feel good to watch your power reserves tick up while you're driving, knowing you're working towards a self-sustaining home on wheels. There is a satisfying sense of density here. It feels cozy and adventurous. However, I won't lie, it does feel a bit claustrophobic at the start. The management aspect is really what sells it. You aren't building for aesthetics, you're building for weight distribution and energy consumption. That balancing act is the core hook, and honestly, it works. So how do you pay for all these upgrades? Well, you're basically the world's most efficient janitor. Instead of mining nodes all day, you are largely scavenging trash left behind by previous campers. You gather scraps and feed it into the science machine to process into materials or research points. I actually like this twist. It gives you a narrative reason to explore. You're cleaning up the world to build your future. However, we have to talk about the early game pacing, as it is slow. I mean, it can be painfully slow. Before you can unlock automated tools, you're manually harvesting everything in a somewhat scarce location. The stamina bar drains quickly and the yield feels slow. There's a solid hour at the start where it feels like a chore. It's not impressive, and I can see people bouncing off the game right there and then. But then you get to the upgrades, and that's when you feel that the game is valuing your time and you start enjoying the progression. Once you have an electric tools running it off of your van's power, the loop tightens up. You'll pull up deployed tools, strip area in minutes, and move on. The blueprint system ties directly into the trash economy. You aren't grinding for experience points, you're grinding material to buy knowledge. It feels rewarding to recycle trash and objects into important blueprints. It gives value to the garbage, which is a nice touch. Now, since the van is the main character, the driving needs to feel good. And honestly, it does. It has weight. When you go off-road, you feel the suspension working against the terrain. It doesn't feel like an arcade racer. It feels like gravity is a real thing. The scale changes, the weight changes, the presence changes. As you add more modules, it handles differently. It feels like a simulation of driving a heavy, slightly clunky house on wheels. As much as I would enjoy zooming around and unlocking blueprints, I can appreciate how it would feel to drive a large camper with so many attachments onto it. The on-foot character movement is pretty good. Running around and collecting material isn't bad until you run out of energy or become encumbered. However, using a ladder in this game does feel off at times and janky. I also ran into collision issues where the van would get snagged on small rocks. It's not game breaking, but doing a 20-point turn to get off a pebble breaks the immersion. It reminds you that this is still a work in progress. It is frustrating when the physics engine decides a small stone is actually an immovable wall. One thing to keep in mind is the complete lack of combat. There is zero. The tension comes entirely from resource management. Will my battery last the night? Do I have enough food? It's a lower stakes pressure. If you need adrenaline, this isn't it. But if you want to optimize a grid, it's perfect. Now, I did play solo, but the devs confirmed a 4-player co-op for launch. I can see this being chaotic fun. Managing a tiny interior with 3 other people sounds like a nightmare, but in a fun way. Coordinating who drives and who cooks could be the real highlight. Now, Squareglade Games is targeting a Q2 2026 for a full 1.0 release on Steam. It's ambitious to skip early access, but if the content depth matches the mechanics we saw in the demo, they might pull it off. So Outbound is scratching a very specific itch. It's not for the hardcore raider, it's for the person who likes to optimize a power grid. The driving feels meaningful and the building stands out. It has rough edges, the movement jank is real, but the core concept is strong. It does feel good to build a home that moves with you. I'm curious if the lack of combat is a deal breaker for you, or if you're ready to retire from fighting zombies. Let me know what you think. I'll catch you in the next one.